Back in the 19th century, white women were not allowed to have sexual relationships without marriage. It was considered highly unethical to have any type of relationship without marriage. However, white men could get a chance to do the forbidden once in a while, either with married white women or black women slaves. However, white adult girls were left to crave sexual relationships. The only way they could have it was to get married. That's when white women thought about their young white daughters, using what was at its peak, slavery. They knew they could not get white adult youngsters to have relationships with their daughters. Therefore, they thought about doing the unimaginable, surpassing all ethical limitations. They decided to use black male slaves to please their white daughters, teaching them what to do once they were married. In other words, white mothers used black male slaves as a tool to make their young daughters adult and experienced. But what the black male slaves were forced to do with the white daughters of their white mistresses? Let's know about that in this video.
The Black History Archives.
Sometimes it becomes quite hard to believe how far white women's slave owners could go for not only their pleasure and satisfaction, but for their adult daughters. Detailed accounts of such incidents exist in books written by slaves like Harriet Jacobs and Frederick Douglass, who later escaped from slavery. They shared their first-hand experience about how white mistresses belonging to wealthy families considered it normal to have sexual relationships with black male slaves. Despite being married, they did not shy away from using black male slaves as a tool for pleasure. Even if they could get a chance to either have extramarital relationships with other white men or use black male slaves for sexual relationships, they knew their adult daughters felt deprived. It's because back in the 19th century, America upheld conservative values, especially regarding sexuality and relationships, particularly for young white women. The prevailing belief was that sexual intimacy should only occur within marriage, and any departure from this norm was met with harsh judgment and condemnation. From childhood, white girls were taught the critical importance of preserving their purity and virtue until marriage. Their societal standing and personal value were closely linked to their purity, with any perceived transgression risking social rejection and harm to their reputation. This emphasis on chastity was reinforced through various means, including religious teachings, literature, and societal expectations. Premarital sex was considered taboo and morally unacceptable, with young women expected to fiercely protect their virginity. At the heart of this cultural landscape was the courtship process, where young women participated in rituals overseen by their families and communities, all with the goal of marriage. Courtship was viewed as a formal and intentional pursuit, offering couples a controlled and socially acceptable way to get to know each other. However, within the confines of courtship, physical intimacy was tightly restricted, with any sexual activity reserved exclusively for marriage. Consequently, young women had limited opportunities to explore their own sexuality or experience sexual pleasure outside of marriage. All this made adult white girls crave sexual relationships. They knew that even if they got married, they would not be fully sexually satisfied, as their husbands would be attracted to other women. That's when white slave mistresses, who were also mothers, came to realize that their white daughters needed someone for sexual pleasure. They would use their wild imagination to do something shocking. White women slave owners would convince their white daughters to have sexual relationships with black male slaves, telling them about how they themselves were pleased by black male slaves. In this way, white mothers would get their white daughters to think, imagine, and make up their minds to use black male slaves as tools to get sexually pleased without getting married. Just the thought of this allowed white girls to feel liberty. After encouraging their daughters to make up their minds, they would then involve them in the selection of black male slaves for sexual relationships. It's true that, in most cases, it was not a relationship but a one-time sexual encounter. However, the white women slave owners were permanently in sexual relationships. The selection process would begin with a mother or another female relative, such as an aunt, directing her adult daughter to choose an enslaved black man for a sexual encounter. The daughter might be assigned the task of selecting from among the enslaved individuals owned by the family, often based on physical appearance or perceived strength. Here's a reminder to please support us so we can make more videos for you by subscribing to our channel and giving the video a like. We want to build a strong community, and we need your support. Let's continue now. The participation of daughters in choosing enslaved men perpetuated the power imbalances of slavery within the household, reinforcing the notion of ownership and control over those enslaved. It also afforded the daughter a role in and benefits from the exploitation of these men for her own satisfaction or that of the family. Once the black male slave was selected, the white mother would make arrangements for the following steps. These arrangements often included preparing a secluded room within the household, shielded from the prying eyes of other family members or household staff. They knew that if their white husbands or sons saw them doing extremely unethical things, they would probably lose all their status and honor. However, despite this, attention was paid to the room where the white daughter and black male slave would be taken. Because it was the white daughter's first time, white women slave owners wanted to ensure it remained well in memories. Therefore, the room was meticulously decorated to create an illusion of intimacy and privacy, despite the inherently exploitative nature of the encounter. Soft linens, elegant curtains, and other adornments were used to mask the brutality of the situation with an aura of comfort and luxury. But all this was done and left for the night. It's because, during the day, white mothers and daughters could not risk getting seen by the males in the house. Once night approached and darkness took over, the white mother would escort her daughter and force the selected black male slave to the appointed room. But something unusual would happen. Rather than leaving them alone together, as might be expected in a consensual encounter, white women mistresses made the unsettling decision to remain in the room, overseeing the proceedings. The presence of the mother or another white woman during these encounters served as a stark reminder of the total control and ownership that white women exercised over the bodies and lives of those they enslaved. It underscored the deeply entrenched racism and dehumanization inherent in slave-owning society. For the daughter, the presence of her mother or another white woman reinforced her subordinate position within the family hierarchy. It underscored that even in matters as personal as sexual relationships, her actions were subject to the scrutiny and approval of her white female relatives. Furthermore, the presence of the white mistress in the room had profound implications for the enslaved black man involved. Stripped of agency and autonomy, he keenly felt being observed and judged, reduced to nothing more than a tool for the pleasure of his white owners. These encounters laid bare the extent to which the institution of slavery dehumanized and commodified individuals based on race. Enslaved black men were not only denied their freedom, but also robbed of their fundamental humanity, reduced to mere objects to be utilized and discarded at the whims of their white owners. White mistress mother would feel it essential to be in the room where her adult daughter is forcing black male slave to have sexual encounters with her. Because this is her first encounter where she will lose her virginity, her mother felt it essential to be there and handle the situation. Once the first encounter was done, the white mistress would leave the room and allow her daughter to use the black male slave however she pleased, asking him to do all kinks and fetishes for her. Because white adult girls could not earlier have any chance to be close to any man, now getting a strong black male for herself would open all doors of pleasure. White daughters would use their imagination to invent new ways to have extra pleasures because they knew their every order would be fulfilled. Sometimes this meant ordering black male slaves to perform sexual acts for their entertainment. Enslaved black men were coerced or forced to take part in these acts, knowing that refusing could lead to severe punishment or retribution. These performances took on various forms, including dancing, stripping, or engaging in sexual behavior, all aimed at exciting and amusing the white daughter. The enslaved individuals were treated as objects of pleasure, stripped of their humanity, and reduced to mere tools for the satisfaction of their white owners. This degrading phenomenon reinforced the power dynamics of slavery, with white daughters exercising control over the bodies and lives of enslaved black men for their own pleasure. That's precisely what their mothers wanted them to learn, besides sexually getting pleased. In some cases, the black male slaves were asked to be dominant and hard on the white daughters. This presented a unique challenge to the black male slaves. They were accustomed to enduring pain and doing whatever they were ordered. However, they did not know how to respond to these types of orders where the white daughters demanded to be dominated. Even if they held real power over the slaves, they wanted to experience how it felt to be submissive sexually. However, black male slaves would feel ashamed and decline. This was followed by punishment, forcing the black male slaves to do whatever was asked. Therefore, black male slaves would ultimately dominate adult white girls, allowing them to feel real pleasure. In some cases, white mothers would come back to the rooms and join their daughters, exploiting the black male slaves together. Once it was done, the white adult daughter would become the real adult in the eyes of her white mother, while the black male slave was sent to his hut near the plantation. He was asked to remain silent and not to tell anyone about what happened. And this exploitative cycle would continue for as long as the white women slave owners wanted. What do you think? Why did white women and adult white girls not consider it unethical to use black male slaves in bed? Isn't it true that the history of white women and daughters using black male slaves to gain sexual experience is deliberately hidden to avoid shame? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on whether you see the same pattern today. Would you like us to make more videos? If yes, please support us by subscribing to the Black History Archives and clicking the bell icon. You can check out more videos on our channel too.